Yeah, MrVisions, thanks for the response. Talking about spirituality and religion and the problems that some YouTubers have with religion. I wanted to talk a little bit about that today because you got me thinking about it, and I figured I would take the time and put some of my thoughts out there. I mean, the problem that I have, though, when people, have a complaint against religion, is that I just don't think it's specific enough. That's always the problem that I have with that. Because, if there's an issue with religion, then have it be talk about what the issue is. Don't just have the blanket statement that religion is bad. I mean, blanket statements are bad. All blanket statements are false. And that's the problem. That's the problem that I have, because there's obviously good social benefits to religion, and religion is not always problematic. And it certainly need not be problematic. I mean, I think if you look at the evolution of religion, let's go back to hunter-gatherer times, okay? And you've got your shaman and the various spirits and whatever they gotta deal with. And, if you're in your little band and you don't placate the woolly mammoth spirit, everyone thinks you're screwing up the hunt, and that's real to them, and it can be problematic. But you can always move on to another band that doesn't have a shaman that's a pain to you or whatever. I mean, I guess if you ultimately don't believe in all these animal spirits, you're going to kind of be hurting because no band is going to want you. But it's, if you can maybe start your own band, then you're okay. But it's not all that onerous. And obviously there's some social benefit, the bonding that happens with the rituals and everything, and it's kind of this sympathetic magic. So you're stabbing at the the effigy of the mammoth or whatever. It's kind of not a bad thing. But flash forward to when settlements begin and you've got all your different local deities. If you don't make the proper sacrifice to the deity, well now you're threatening the entire settlement. The village is going to have a problem with crops and whatever. And there's an issue with that. But you can always go to the next village, whatever. It might not be that bad. But the problem happens when you start, I think the problem occurs with religion when you start saying well, your God is false and my God is real. Because then, that's when you really start to get into the whole heresy thing. And if you're saying my God's false, then, what does that do? There's some real problems, because you're really stabbing at some basic values of my village, my locality. Could be a big issue with that, and that's where I think you start having the problems. But then I think the bigger problem happens when you start seeing religion and government combined. I mean, I think that's really where religion got completely screwed up. Especially in the Middle Ages, Catholic Church and such. Really, when church and state are tied together, there's major problems. I mean, first off, every little thing then is under the scrutiny of the government, and that becomes a major problem. And then you have the power of the army to back it up, because the state controls the monopoly of force. And there's all kinds of these issues that pop up then. And then of course, you expect this, religious institution, to be this paragon of virtue and, to be uncompromising in the faith and everything. But governing is not about, failing to compromise. Government is always about compromise, the reality of the situation. And so I think, so many of the problems where we go, oh, religion did this and religion did that. We're looking at the problems that actually occurred where, well, that was religion in government. And governments always screw up. They're always going to make a mistake. I mean, nobody's going to be perfect. And the problem is, when you have the monopoly of force and you have the duty to take care of your citizenry, when you screw that up, you screw it up in a major way. I mean, there's no small way to do that. It's always, violation of somebody's rights, etc. It's always a major problem. And I think that ends up being the issue. That ends up being the big issue. And I think that's where we end up having the problems. And that's why, I think that you need to talk about what exactly is the problem. What exactly is the problem? And if you don't talk about what the problem is, then, and you just start talking about, oh, well, it's religion, etc., you don't really address what's going on. I gotta roll. Peace.